Princess Lyra of Zifira stood at the tall glass window of her private chamber, staring out at the sparkling city below. The crystalline towers reflected the light of Zifira's twin suns, casting rainbows across the sky. Everything looked beautiful, perfect, and empty. She felt trapped. Every day of her life was planned. Meetings, lessons in diplomacy, etiquette, history, and leadership. Every word she spoke was measured, every action watched. And yet Lyra longed for something real, something that belonged to her alone. Her father, the king, had already arranged her marriage to Princess Lyra's distant cousin, a union meant to strengthen political alliances. The thought of being bound to someone she barely knew filled her with a quiet dread. She loved her planet, her people, but she hated feeling like a piece on a chessboard. "I need air," Lyra whispered to herself. She pulled on her light flight suit and slipped out of the palace. The city's main airway tower hummed softly in the distance. Lyra climbed into her small shuttle, her fingers trembling slightly with excitement. She didn't know where she was going. She just wanted to feel the wind on her face, to be free even for a little while. The shuttle's engines roared to life. Lyra guided it smoothly away from the palace. Below her, the city glimmered like a jewel. She laughed softly, a sound she rarely let herself make. For a moment, she forgot her duties, the king's rules, and the endless expectations. But freedom, as it often does, was fragile. A sudden jolt shook the shuttle violently. Warning lights flashed across the dashboard. Lyra fought to steady the controls, but the ship groaned under pressure. The navigation system blinked red, signaling a complete malfunction. Panic threatened to rise in her chest, but she swallowed it. She had trained for emergencies. Pulling from deep within herself, Lyra adjusted the thrusters and aimed for a nearby moon she had read about in maps but never visited. Her shuttle shuddered and sparks flew. "Please, hold together," she whispered. The landing was rough. Metal screeched and cracked, and Lyra's shuttle skidded across the rocky surface before coming to a halt. Dust and small stones scattered into the thin atmosphere. She blinked through the haze, checking herself for injuries. A few scratches on her arms, but otherwise, she was alive. "Okay," she said, taking a deep breath. New planet. New adventure. The moon was quiet. Eerily quiet. Jagged rocks and strange purple vegetation stretched out as far as she could see. The sky had a soft greenish hue, and two moons hung above like silent watchers. The air was breathable, just barely, but it carried a faint metallic tang. Lyra stepped out of her shuttle and felt the ground beneath her feet. Solid, real, alive, she walked slowly, exploring the alien landscape. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with excitement. She felt free. And then she heard it, a faint, almost musical whistle from the rocks nearby. Lyra froze. Her hand went instinctively to the small plasma blade at her belt, though she hoped she would not need it. The sound grew closer, and suddenly a creature burst out from behind a jagged boulder. It was large, covered in sleek black fur with glowing blue eyes and sharp claws. It snarled. Lyra's first instinct was to run, but she remembered her training. She steadied herself, watching the creature's movements. It was fast, but it moved in a pattern, circling her as if trying to test her. The creature lunged. Lyra barely dodged, rolling across the ground and pulling out a small energy net from her belt. With a quick motion, she threw it, ensnaring the creature. It struggled, growling, and then froze as the net stabilized with an energy field. Lyra exhaled slowly. That was close. Her pulse was racing, but she smiled. She had survived her first real danger on this strange moon, and yet she felt a strange pang of guilt. She had scared it, even if it was trying to scare her. "Maybe I should leave it alone," she muttered, releasing the net. The creature hesitated, then darted back into the rocks. Lyra watched it disappear, feeling a strange connection to the alien life around her. She decided to explore further. She noticed a faint trail leading into a narrow canyon, glowing softly under the moonlight. Curious, she followed it. Her shuttle was damaged, and she had no immediate plan to repair it. But the mystery called to her. She needed to see what lay ahead, and that's when she saw him. A human. He was crouched by a strange alien device, scribbling notes on a glowing tablet. He looked up suddenly, startled by her presence. His brown eyes widened, and he raised his hand slowly. "Whoa, I didn't expect anyone else here," he said in a calm voice. His tone was gentle, and his accent was unmistakably human. Lyra blinked. She had never seen a human before. Humans were considered rare travelers beyond the inner solar systems. And here, on this forgotten moon, one stood before her, completely unaware of her royal identity. "I am Princess Lyra of Zephyra," she said cautiously, unsure whether to trust him. The man froze for a moment, then smiled. I'm Ethan, human explorer, and I guess lucky. You just saved me from that rock slide back there. Lyra frowned. Rock slide? She remembered no rock slide. Then she noticed the small device partially buried under rocks nearby. Apparently a small tremor had almost crushed him. She had not known she saved a human, but it didn't matter. Yes, and you did save me. Thank you. Ethan's smile was sincere, and Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. They spent the next few hours talking. Ethan explained he was exploring ancient alien ruins on the moon. Lyra listened, fascinated by his stories of human exploration, courage, and ingenuity. She told him about Zephyra in vague terms, careful not to reveal too much. Something inside her shifted. She felt understood, seen, and not judged for her curiosity or her desire to escape. Ethan's admiration for humans and for her bravery stirred a feeling she had never allowed herself before. She was happy, truly happy. As the moon's twin moons rose high above the horizon, casting silver light across the rocks, Lyra realized something terrifying. She could not go back, not yet. Not while this feeling of freedom and connection existed. She glanced at Ethan. I think I want to stay a little longer, she said, almost whispering. Ethan nodded. Then stay. For now, at least. No one can take this away from you. Lyra smiled, her heart racing. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had chosen her own path. But shadows always come. In the distance, the faint glint of Zephyra's royal fleet appeared in orbit, scanning the moon. Word of her missing shuttle had reached the palace. The king would send forces to bring her back, whether she wanted to return or not. Lyra's stomach tightened. Freedom had a price. She looked at Ethan, who was still busy taking notes and examining a strange artifact. She had choices to make, and she didn't yet know what the consequences would be. But for now, she had this moment of real life, real connection, and real adventure. The strange twin moons of the distant moon hung high in the sky, their soft glow casting long shadows over jagged rocks and purple vegetation. Princess Lyra and Ethan sat near a small fire he had built from alien fuel rods he had scavenged. Smoke spiraled into the thin air, blending with the pale green mist that rolled across the ground. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt completely free. She laughed easily, unguarded, as Ethan told stories of humans exploring unknown planets, sometimes getting into trouble and often learning from it. Her heart warmed with admiration for the humans' courage and cleverness. You humans are different, Lyra said quietly. On Zephyra, we are taught to follow rules, to obey, to be perfect in public. I've never met anyone who simply lives. Ethan grinned. We make mistakes. A lot of mistakes. But that's how we learn. And sometimes, it's the only way to find out what really matters. Lyra looked at him, realizing he was right. She had spent her life following orders, avoiding mistakes, and pleasing others. But out here with him, she could be herself, curious, bold, and even reckless. Over the next few days, they explored the moon together. Ethan showed her how to identify edible plants, how to move silently over rocky terrain, and even how to communicate with some of the smaller local creatures without scaring them. Lyra was amazed at how humans could adapt to any situation, using their minds more than technology. One afternoon, they came across a hidden cavern, its entrance masked by a waterfall of shimmering green liquid. The air smelled sweet and metallic at the same time. Lyra's eyes widened. This is beautiful, she whispered. How did you find it? Ethan shrugged. Sometimes you just follow the patterns of the land. The universe hides its secrets in plain sight if you know where to look. Inside the cavern, strange crystals glowed softly. Their light reflected off the walls, bathing Lyra's face in a warm glow. Ethan carefully examined the crystals and then handed one to her. Here, touch it. Feel the energy, he said. Lyra reached out. The crystal pulsed gently, almost like it was alive. She gasped. It feels warm, almost like it's alive. Ethan nodded. Every planet has its secrets. Some of them are waiting for someone brave enough to discover them. As the days passed, their bond deepened. Ethan admired Lyra's intelligence and bravery, while Lyra grew to appreciate Ethan's compassion and ingenuity. They shared stories of their lives, of the worlds they came from, and of their hopes for the future. One evening, as the sun set behind the jagged mountains, Lyra sat silently watching the colors shift in the sky. Ethan joined her, sitting close but not touching. The moment was peaceful. but Lyra could feel the weight of her reality pressing in. "I can't stay here forever," she said softly. "My father. He will send people to find me. The king doesn't tolerate disobedience." Ethan placed a comforting hand on hers. "Then we face it together. Humans don't back down from challenges. We fight for what we believe in, and sometimes we risk everything for the people we care about." Lyra looked into his eyes, seeing something she had never seen before: courage, honesty, and a quiet strength. Her heart pounded. For the first time, she felt that love could be more powerful than duty, more important than obedience. But reality came crashing in faster than she wanted. A soft hum filled the sky, growing louder by the second. Lyra looked up and her heart sank. The royal fleet of Zephyra glinted against the stars, scanning the moon with advanced sensors. The king had sent his forces to retrieve her. "They're here," she whispered. Panic clawed at her chest. "They'll find us." Ethan's face remained calm. "Then we make sure they don't find us easily. Come on." He led her to a narrow canyon, twisting and turning through the jagged rocks using paths that he had memorized during their explorations. Lyra's pulse raced, but she followed his lead, trusting his instincts. They moved quickly, silently, weaving through shadows as the royal fleet scanned above. Hours passed. Exhaustion weighed on Lyra, but adrenaline kept her moving. Finally, they reached a small underground cavern that Ethan had discovered earlier. The entrance was hidden behind a curtain of glowing vines. "This should keep them from scanning us for now," Ethan said. "But it's only temporary. Eventually, they'll search every inch of this moon." Lyra sank to the ground, her mind racing. "I can't go back. Not yet. I can't. I've never felt anything like this before. I don't want to leave." Ethan sat beside her. "Then don't. Not if you don't want to. You're brave enough to choose your own path, Princess. That's more than most people, even kings, can say." She looked at him, and for a moment the fear vanished. She felt alive, strong, and certain. "Then we stay," she said. The next few days were tense. They scavenged for food and water, repaired parts of her shuttle as best they could, and explored secret corners of the moon. All the while, Lyra and Ethan grew closer. Their hands brushed sometimes, and their eyes met in moments of unspoken understanding. Love was blooming, quiet but unstoppable. One night, Lyra could not sleep. She stepped outside the cavern, looking up at the stars. The twin moons glowed softly, and the distant lights of Zephyra's fleet shimmered faintly. Ethan joined her silently, standing beside her. "Do you ever wonder?" Lyra asked. "What life would be like if we just followed our hearts instead of rules?" Ethan smiled. "All the time. That's what makes life worth living, choosing who you want to be, not what others want you to be." Lyra nodded, feeling a surge of hope. She had made a choice, and it scared her, but it also made her feel more alive than she ever had in the palace. Suddenly, a small glowing alien creature appeared from the rocks. It had 6 legs, large eyes, and a soft hum emanating from its body. Lyra reached out instinctively. The creature approached her, then Ethan, then hovered near the fire. It was calm, curious, and seemed to understand that they were not a threat. Ethan laughed softly. "Looks like we've made a friend. Even the locals approve of you, Princess." Lyra smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. In this strange place, surrounded by alien life and human courage, she had discovered something more important than politics or duty. She had discovered herself and love, but the peace was fragile. The royal fleet continued to scan, their energy pulses brushing past the planet's surface like distant storms. Each day they stayed hidden was a gift, but Lyra knew they could not hide forever. "This won't last forever," she said softly, almost to herself. Ethan placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "Then we make the most of it. Every moment counts, and when the time comes, we face them. Together." Lyra took a deep breath. Her heart swelled with determination. She had found love, courage, and freedom in one human, and she would not give it up. Not to fear, not to duty, not even to a king. The days that followed were filled with small victories, discovering hidden caves, finding edible plants, and learning to navigate the moon's strange terrain. But they were also filled with tension. As the royal fleet's search patterns grew more precise, Lyra began to understand the stakes. Her actions would have consequences, not just for herself, but for Ethan and for the people who looked up to her as their future queen. One evening, as they rested in the cavern, Ethan spoke quietly. "Lyra, I need you to promise me something." "What?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "No matter what happens, you don't give up on yourself. Your heart, your choices. They matter. More than anyone else's rules. Lyra looked into his eyes, seeing the unwavering belief he had in her. She felt a strength she had never known before. I promise, she said softly, her voice steady. And in that moment, beneath alien moons and glowing crystals, two hearts formed a bond that would not break. Not even the King of Zephyra could undo it. The path ahead would be dangerous, filled with impossible choices and tests of courage. But Lyra knew one thing for certain. She had chosen her own life, and she would fight to live it fully. Princess Lyra stood at the edge of the cavern, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the distant lights of Zephyra's royal fleet shimmered like a net closing in. Her heart raced, not from fear but from anticipation. She had made her choice. She had chosen Ethan. She had chosen freedom. But now the consequences were coming faster than she had imagined. Ethan appeared beside her, carrying a small device he had scavenged from the moon's surface. They've sent a ship down, he said quietly. It's fast, heavily armed. The king isn't wasting any time. Lyra swallowed hard. He doesn't know the truth yet. I have to face him. I can't keep running forever. Ethan's eyes softened. You're brave enough to face him, and you won't be alone. For the first time, Lyra felt the weight of her role, not as a princess but as a human being making her own choice. The king's fleet descended rapidly, scanning the rocky terrain. In moments, a shuttle broke away from the main formation and landed nearby, its metal hull glinting under the moon's light. The shuttle's door opened, and a figure stepped out, tall, regal, and commanding. King Zephyr. His armor gleamed with royal insignias and his eyes, sharp and calculating, fixed on Lyra. Lyra, he called, his voice deep and resonant. Return to Zephyra immediately. You know the consequences of defying me. I will not tolerate disobedience from my daughter. Lyra stepped forward, her chest rising with determination. Father, she said firmly, I have made my choice. I will not return. I will not marry as you commanded. I choose my own life. The king's eyes narrowed and a wave of authority radiated from him. Your life is not your own, Lyra. You are the heir to Zephyra. Every action you take affects the future of our empire. Your choice is reckless. You will obey or you will face exile, or worse. Lyra's hands trembled slightly, but she held her ground. I understand the risks, Father, but I cannot obey orders that betray my heart. I will not marry someone I do not love. I will not live a life dictated by fear or duty alone. I choose love. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself slightly between Lyra and the king. Your Majesty, he said calmly but firmly. She is brave, strong, and smart. You should be proud of her courage, not punish it. Love is not weakness. It's strength, and it's worth fighting for. The king's eyes flicked to Ethan, assessing him. Then he spoke slowly, his tone sharp. You are human. You have no right to interfere in Zephyra's affairs. Step aside or you will regret it. Ethan's lips curved into a small, confident smile. I don't think so. Humans fight for what's right, even when the odds are against them. We never back down from challenges and we never abandon those we care about. Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had always been taught to admire rulers, their wisdom, and their strength. But here she realized that strength came in many forms. Not just from titles or armies, but from courage, love, and the willingness to act on one's beliefs. King Zephyr's expression darkened. So be it, he said. You leave me no choice. If you will not obey, I will bring you back by force, guards. From the shuttle, armored soldiers emerged, moving with precision and speed. Lyra's pulse quickened, but she did not step back. Ethan pulled her slightly behind a jagged rock formation. Stay calm, he whispered. We can outsmart them. Humans have a way of turning the impossible into possible. The soldiers approached cautiously, scanning for life signs. Lyra's mind raced. She had studied tactical maneuvers in palace lessons, but she had never imagined using them in a real confrontation. Ethan handed her a small device. This can create a temporary energy shield. It won't last long, but it will give us an opening. Lyra activated it. A translucent barrier shimmered into existence just as the soldiers reached their hiding spot. Energy pulses deflected harmlessly off the shield. Ethan seized the moment and led Lyra through a narrow path in the rocks, one the royal sensors could not detect. As they ran, Lyra realized something profound. She was no longer just a princess following orders. She was a being capable of making her own choices, facing danger and protecting the person she loved. Every step reinforced her conviction. Suddenly, a drone appeared overhead, scanning the terrain with blinding light. Ethan grabbed a reflective shard from the ground, angled it, and redirected the light beam away from them. The drone's sensors were confused, giving them precious seconds to escape further into the cavern system. Humans are really clever, Lyra said, slightly out of breath but smiling. Ethan laughed softly. We have to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't survive out here. Hours passed as they navigated the twisting tunnels and hidden passages. Lyra could hear the faint hum of the royal fleet above, but each obstacle they overcame made her feel stronger. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Finally, they reached a hidden exit leading to a high cliff overlooking the alien landscape. The twin moons bathed the valley below in pale light. Lyra paused, catching her breath. This way, Ethan said, pointing to a narrow ledge that led to another canyon. We can stay ahead of them if we move quickly. Lyra nodded. I never imagined I could feel so alive, she said softly. Even with danger around us, I feel free, Ethan smiled. Freedom isn't about being safe. It's about choosing your own path, no matter the risks. Their brief moment of peace was interrupted by a loud rumble. The royal fleet had launched smaller attack pods, scouring the surface for signs of life. Energy beams cut through the canyon walls, sending rocks tumbling down. Lyra's heart raced, but she did not panic. Ethan grabbed her hand. We have to move, now! They sprinted along the narrow ledge, leaping over gaps and dodging falling debris. Lyra's mind raced with strategy, combining everything she had learned from palace lessons with what Ethan had taught her about improvisation. Together, they were unstoppable. At one point, a pod appeared directly above them, scanning with a wide beam. Ethan quickly pulled out a mirror-like device. He angled it toward the beam, redirecting the energy harmlessly into the canyon wall. The pod malfunctioned, giving them enough time to escape. As they reached a safer plateau, Lyra looked back. The fleet continued its search, but for now they were out of reach. Her heart pounded, but she felt exhilarated. She had faced the king's wrath, navigated deadly terrain, and survived. Not just because of luck, but because of courage, cleverness, and the bond she shared with Ethan. She turned to him. I was afraid of disappointing him, of failing my duty. But now I see. I can be strong in my own way. I don't have to follow the path laid out for me. I can create my own path. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. That's the human spirit, Lyra. Courage, love, and determination. We don't wait for someone to tell us what to do. We act even when it's hard, Lyra smiled, feeling a deep sense of belonging, not to a palace or a throne, but to her own choices and to Ethan. For the first time, she felt that she could face anything, as long as she remained true to herself. That night, as they rested in the safety of a hidden cave, Lyra looked at the stars and made a silent promise. She would not turn back. She would not surrender to fear, duty, or tradition. She had chosen love, and she would fight for it, even if the entire empire stood against her. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew that this choice, this defiance, was not just about her own happiness. It was about showing her people that courage and love could challenge even the strictest rules. That strength came not from obedience, but from standing up for what was right. As she drifted to sleep beside Ethan, Lyra felt a quiet determination settle in her chest. The king's wrath was coming, but so was her chance to prove that bravery, love, and human ingenuity could shine in even the darkest moments. For the first time, Princess Lyra felt not just alive, but unstoppable. The rocky moon stretched endlessly under the soft glow of the twin moons. Princess Lyra and Ethan had moved far from the main fleet, but the hum of distant engines reminded them that time was short. Every moment of peace was temporary. The king's forces would not give up easily. Ethan scanned the horizon with a handheld sensor. They're reorganizing. More pods are coming. They'll sweep this area soon. Lyra tightened her grip on her small energy blade. Then we have to keep moving. We can't let them corner us. The path ahead was treacherous. Jagged cliffs, narrow ledges, and deep canyons created natural obstacles, but Lyra felt alive in a way she never had in the palace. Each step, each leap, each careful maneuver through the alien terrain made her heart pound. Not with fear, but with determination. Ethan led the way, using his knowledge of terrain and human ingenuity to navigate the dangerous landscape. We need to reach the lower canyon. It's a maze of tunnels and caves. The fleet won't be able to scan it easily. Lyra followed closely, feeling a surge of pride. She realized that humans had a unique strength, the ability to adapt, to improvise, and to use creativity under pressure. It was different from the rigid strategies of her people, yet just as effective. As they moved, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Rocks tumbled from above, blocking part of the path. Lyra froze for a moment, then Ethan pulled her aside. "We can use this. The debris can hide us temporarily, but we have to be quick." Together they climbed over the jagged rocks, careful not to make noise. Lyra's pulse raced, but her mind was focused. She had trained in diplomacy, strategy, and survival, but never like this. Here, in real danger, she discovered her own courage. Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinth of tunnels. They paused only to rest briefly and catch their breath. Lyra looked at Ethan, who was examining a strange glowing crystal embedded in the cavern wall. "These crystals," he said, "are not just beautiful. They store energy. If we can redirect it, we could create a shield strong enough to block scanners or even defend against pods if they find us." Lyra nodded. "Then let's do it. We have to try." They worked together, using human ingenuity and Lyra's knowledge of alien technology to set up a makeshift energy shield. As they activated it, a faint hum filled the air. The shield pulsed, glowing softly. "Perfect," Ethan said. "This will give us time." No sooner had they finished than the hum of a fleet pod reached their ears. Light beams swept through the tunnels, probing for life. The shield absorbed the scans, hiding their presence. Lyra felt a thrill of triumph. She was not just running. She was fighting in her own way. But the fleet adapted quickly. Another pod appeared, smaller and faster, closing in on them from above. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "We need a diversion. Follow my lead." He hurled a small device that exploded into a brilliant flash of light and smoke. The pod's sensors were blinded temporarily. Lyra and Ethan sprinted along a narrow ledge, jumping over gaps and climbing over rocks. The sound of the pod's engines echoed behind them, but they did not look back. Finally, they reached a hidden canyon, its entrance concealed by tall, glowing vines. Ethan checked the sensors. "We're safe for now, but we can't stop. We have to keep moving toward the cliffs on the other side. From there, we can find a hidden valley and regroup." Lyra's legs ached, but she did not complain. She had never felt so alive. Fear and danger were real, but so was courage, love, and determination. She realized that the human spirit, its ingenuity, bravery, and compassion, was something to admire and emulate. As they climbed toward the cliffs, Lyra spotted movement in the distance. More pods were coming, faster this time, scanning the terrain with deadly precision. They would soon be trapped if they didn't act quickly. Ethan pointed to a narrow path along the cliffside. "We can use that. It's dangerous, but it will slow them down. Follow me exactly." The path was barely wide enough for one person. A single misstep could send them plummeting into the jagged rocks below. Lyra's heart raced, but she followed Ethan closely. Each step required focus, balance, and trust. Halfway along the path, a pod appeared above, scanning directly in their direction. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind a rock ledge. He pointed to a reflective crystal nearby. "Use this to redirect the beam." Lyra angled the crystal just as Ethan instructed. The pod's light reflected harmlessly into the canyon walls, missing them entirely. She felt a surge of pride. They were using their minds, not weapons, to survive. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Rocks shifted and the ledge beneath them cracked. Lyra's heart leapt. "Ethan!" He grabbed her, pulling her to safety just as the ledge crumbled. They scrambled to solid ground, gasping for breath. Lyra's chest heaved, but she could not stop smiling. Danger had never felt so alive, and yet she had never felt more confident in her own strength. "Humans are incredible," she said, awe in her voice. Ethan smiled. "You're incredible too, Lyra. You're learning fast. Courage isn't just about fighting. It's about thinking, adapting, and trusting yourself." They rested briefly, knowing that the fleet would not give up. Lyra looked at the distant lights and made a decision. "We need to face them, not just run. If we can show my father, show everyone, that love and courage are stronger than fear, maybe we can change things." Ethan nodded. "I'm with you. Humans don't back down from challenges, and we don't abandon the people we care about. Let's show them what we can do." The next day they prepared for the fleet's approach. Using crystals, reflective surfaces, and energy barriers, they set up a series of traps and diversions. Every step was calculated, every move designed to protect them while testing their ingenuity. When the pods arrived, they were met with a series of clever obstacles. Energy beams reflected, paths shifted, and sensors were confused. Lyra and Ethan moved swiftly, using the chaos to their advantage. For every attack they had a counter. For every obstacle they had a solution. Lyra felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had always been taught to obey, to follow rules, to avoid mistakes. But here she realized that strength came from creativity, courage, and the willingness to act, even in impossible situations. Hours of maneuvering brought them to the edge of a hidden valley, shielded by cliffs and dense alien vegetation. They could rest here safely for a time at least. Lyra collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but triumphant. Ethan sat beside her, looking at the sky. We did it. We survived. Not just because of luck, but because we used our minds, our courage, and our hearts. Lyra nodded. And I've never felt so alive. This is what it means to be free, to choose your own path, to fight for what matters. They sat together in silence, listening to the faint hum of the distant fleet. For the first time, Lyra understood something essential. Courage, love, and ingenuity were stronger than fear, tradition, or even the might of an empire. And as she looked at Ethan, she knew that together they could face anything, even a king determined to control her destiny. The twin moons rose high above, casting silver light across the valley. Lyra and Ethan prepared for the next stage of their journey, knowing that the true test of courage was not over. But for now they had survived. They had proven their ingenuity. They had proven their love. Princess Lyra stood at the edge of the hidden valley, the soft light of the twin moons reflecting off the jagged cliffs. Behind her, Ethan adjusted a small device he had modified from alien crystals, creating a low-energy shield that would hide them from the king's sensors for now. I think this will hold for a few hours, Ethan said, glancing at her with a reassuring smile. Enough time for us to go back and face him. No more running. Lyra's chest tightened. She had spent days hiding, running, and thinking, but now the moment had come. She could no longer avoid the confrontation. She had made her choice to follow her heart, to be with Ethan, but the king would not easily accept that decision. I know, she said softly, taking a deep breath. I'm ready. They left the valley carefully, moving through a narrow canyon that would lead them closer to the fleet's landing zone. The king's flagship hovered above the surface, its sensors scanning for any sign of the princess. Lyra's heart raced, but she focused on the path ahead. Courage was not the absence of fear, she reminded herself. It was moving forward despite fear. When they emerged from the canyon, the fleet's main shuttle bay was visible, and there he was, King Zephyr. His tall figure stood rigid, his eyes cold but searching, scanning the horizon. He had not yet noticed the princess, but the moment she stepped into view, his eyes narrowed. Lyra, he called, his voice carrying over the open space. Return to Zephyra this instant. I will not tolerate defiance. Lyra stepped forward, her head held high. She was no longer a frightened girl running from duty. She was a woman who had chosen her path, who had faced danger, and who had learned what true courage meant. Father, she said firmly, I will not return. I will not marry as you commanded. I have chosen my life, and I have chosen love. Ethan is my choice. My path is my own. King Zephyr's eyes blazed. Love, duty? You do not understand what is at stake. Your actions could endanger our empire. Obey me, or I will make you regret it. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Lyra. Your Majesty, he said, you taught her to be brave and smart. She has used those gifts to survive, to protect herself, and to make choices based on courage and morality. She is not weak. Love is not weakness, it is strength. Something even the strongest empire should respect. The king's gaze flicked between Ethan and Lyra. For the first time, he hesitated. He saw the determination in his daughter's eyes, the loyalty and bravery in the human by her side. The words of soldiers and advisors echoed in his mind. Perhaps there was more to strength than obedience. Enough. The king finally barked, signaling his guards to surround them. Energy beams formed walls, trapping Lyra and Ethan in a narrow clearing. You will come with me. I will not argue further. Lyra's mind raced. She had faced danger, navigated alien terrain, and escaped fleets, but now the confrontation was inevitable. She glanced at Ethan. We can do this. Together. Ethan nodded, his hand brushing against hers briefly. Together, Lyra activated a small energy barrier they had prepared, giving them a temporary shield against the king's guards. The force of the shields created ripples of energy, reflecting the bright beams sent to capture them. Using the distraction, Lyra and Ethan moved quickly toward a nearby ridge, putting distance between themselves and the guards. The king's voice echoed, filled with authority and anger.
"Lyra, you will obey me."
Lyra stopped, turning to face him fully. "No, father. I will not. You taught me to be strong. You taught me to think. And now I am using those lessons not to follow orders blindly but to choose what is right for me." The king's guards hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Lyra's courage, combined with Ethan's clever defenses, disrupted the strict order they had followed blindly. The king took a deep breath, realizing that sheer force would not win this confrontation. Ethan stepped closer. "Your Majesty, she has proven herself, not through obedience but through courage, intelligence, and determination."
"Isn't that what you wanted her to be?"
The king's eyes softened for a brief moment. He remembered the lessons he had given her, the values he had hoped to instill, and now he saw them reflected in her actions. Lyra was not disobedient, she was courageous, compassionate, and clever. She had faced impossible odds and survived. Lyra took another step forward. "Father, I love Ethan, and I have learned that love and courage can change more than fear ever could. You can rule your empire with power, but we can rule our lives with our hearts. I hope you can respect that." The king's face was unreadable. He stood in silence, weighing her words, measuring the strength in her eyes. Finally he spoke, his voice low but firm. "You have chosen wisely in your own way," he said. "I may not fully understand this, human courage or this love you speak of, but I see your determination, and I cannot deny your strength." Lyra's heart leapt. She had not expected acceptance, only that her voice would be heard. King Zephyr stepped back, signaling his guards to stand down. "Go, Lyra, and Ethan. You have proven yourself worthy of respect. Treat her with honor as any who have her trust must be treated." Relief washed over Lyra. She had not only survived but had shown her father and herself that courage, ingenuity, and love were stronger than fear or obligation. She turned to Ethan, her eyes shining. "We did it," she whispered. Ethan smiled, pulling her into a brief, careful embrace. "We did. Together." With the immediate threat gone, they took a moment to breathe and reflect. Lyra realized that her choice had more meaning than personal happiness. She had shown her people that even a princess could choose her own path, that love and courage were forces that could reshape tradition. Over the following weeks, Lyra worked with her father to introduce small changes to the empire. She encouraged the council to consider compassion alongside strategy, courage alongside obedience. Her choices inspired others to think differently, and whispers of change spread throughout Zephyra. Ethan, now recognized not only as Lyra's partner, but also as a clever and resourceful ally, became a bridge between human ingenuity and Zephyra's advanced technology. Together they explored new possibilities, combining human creativity with alien innovation to solve problems the Empire had long thought impossible. One evening, Lyra and Ethan stood on the balcony of her chamber, looking out over the crystalline city that sparkled in the fading sunlight. The twin moons rose, casting silver light across the towers. The city felt alive in a new way, filled with possibility and hope. "I never thought I could feel this. Free," Lyra said, leaning against Ethan. He took her hand gently. "Freedom is not about escaping danger. It's about choosing your path no matter the risks. And you did that, Lyra. You chose your life, and you've shown everyone the power of courage and love." Lyra smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And now, we can explore the stars together." Ethan grinned. "Exactly. The universe is vast, full of adventures waiting for us, and together we can face anything." The city below glittered, alive with the hum of progress and hope. Lyra realized that she had not just survived nor merely escaped. She had inspired change. She had shown that strength could come from compassion, courage, and the human spirit. And as she looked at Ethan, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hearts united, minds sharp, and spirits unbroken. For Princess Lyra and Ethan, love had triumphed over fear. Courage had triumphed over duty dictated by others. And in that triumph, they found not only each other but a new future for themselves and for the world around them. The twin moons shone brightly over Zephyra, as if blessing their choice. And for the first time in her life, Princess Lyra felt fully, completely alive, free to love, free to live, and free to shape her destiny.